Hey everyone, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 571, being recorded Thursday, January 16th, 2020. Now, we've got a big show for you. We missed a couple episodes over the holidays, and I wasn't here to do a normal show last week, so Sebastian and Josh did a mini show, the lost episode 570, which took us a while to get that sorted out, so we're going to get that uploaded, though, for you here shortly.
The fireside chat.
It is the fireside chat. So that was 570. This is 571, and we're back. And because of the delay since our last major show, we've got a lot to talk about. So we're just going to jump into it. You can find all.
You don't want to talk about our Patreon, because it'd be awesome if we can get some more of that rolling in.
Sure. So we do have a Patreon campaign at patreon.com/PCPer, and the little gimmick we have there is if you become a new patron during the show, or if you update your pledge, if you're already a patron, if you increase your pledge, you can change your name before you make the change or become a patron. And I'll read whatever you put in that name field, because I'll get an email here and I'll read it out. And we've established that there are no rules. Just go for it. And I've got nothing else.
So if you do have a $10 or more Patreon per month, I'll do a private whisper sweet nothings in your ear message just for you, personalized.
Okay, is that for
first?
So we provide you with a phone number you'll call. Will you leave me a voicemail in your?
No, I'll probably just do a recording and then we can, email it to them.
Oh,
keep it a level of person, impersonal.
No, I want to clarify.
I'll send you a link to my Google Drive containing a generic message just for you.
Just for you.
We've got a couple patrons already who are very generous, and I think are over that amount. So is this for new members only, or existing members can apply? What's the deal here, Josh?
It's Josh likes any members.
Josh, please retroactively send them your naughtiest messages. And then watch that donation go away.
Watch it just
evaporate.
Well, then just keep sending them until they start donating again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Hey, well, we've already got one here. White Zero just became a patron, so thank you very much, White Zero. No message, unless White Zero means something that I'm not familiar with. But White Zero,
by the way,
patron.
Here's a great analogy. If that's the right word, because my brain is fried. Paperboy, the NES game Paperboy. You know how you have to go through and you throw the newspapers, and if you break the subscribers' windows, they'll get mad at you, and if you do it too much, they don't subscribe anymore. The only way to get people to subscribe who aren't subscribers, correct me if I'm wrong, is to break their windows, right?
Mm-hmm. Maybe, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe what Josh was saying was, maybe the message will turn them off and they'll stop subscribing. But if he keeps sending them, like Jeremy was saying, keep sending the messages. Why don't we just send the messages out, like blanket, send them out to just, oh wait, that's called spam. Never mind.
If you want this to stop, please send us $10.
Yes.
Yes. So sorry, but segue.
Yeah, well, let's get going, because as Josh mentioned, he has to work tonight because he's a poor bastard. So he's gonna have to hop off the call early. So let's jump into the big story of the week.
Let's do it.
So we can get his feedback there. And of course, that is the long-awaited, old news to some, but if you haven't seen it, it's new to you. Ryzen 9 3950X review as
2020 edition.
Yeah, the 2020 edition.
Yeah, I mean, 2019, maybe we knew about this since E3 2019, which was like the beginning of June last year. And maybe everybody else had their reviews up on November 14 of last year. What about January 15 of this year? I don't know if anybody else was releasing a Ryzen 9 3950X review yesterday.
I doubt it. I would say that we have an exclusive on this, but...
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's a new perspective. Get it? Perspective.
Yes. Well, let's take a look, because the one thing I think we need to reinforce is when Sebastian does a review, when PCPer publishes processor reviews, we update everything. Like, these are not using old numbers. These are all new tests run on the latest drivers, the latest security mitigations, the latest patches and all that.
Well, and as of whatever date, but yeah.
Well, right. The latest as of the day the tests were done. But
The Ryzen 9 stuff was tested and then thrown out and then retested. And then literally the retest, like when I did Ryzen 9 3900X, I had those numbers from the 10980XE review.
Mhm.
And then, so this was basically supposed to be 10980XE.2 or 0.1, because that review clearly needed to have the 3950X in it. I didn't have one. We couldn't add it. It was very depressing to release that review back in November when I didn't have this Ryzen 9 part. And then between then and now, at least 2 Ajusta code changes, I believe, because we went to 1.0.0.4 and then 1.0.0.4b.
Yeah.
So anyway, with the latest BIOS update for Ryzen, I retested the 3900X for this review. And by retested, I mean I tested it again just for this review and then threw all those results out and retested it again because of some BIOS weirdness I detected where I was looking at results and they were so off from what they had been before that I'm like, this isn't just a code update.
Right. But my point, without going too far, is just that when you see our reviews, we're using the latest, within reason, the latest methodology, the latest updates, because there are some outlets where I was reading their reviews and they were citing results, and I went back and checked the same results from like a year ago, and those are meaningless because of security mitigations, Windows updates, driver updates. It's almost meaningless to use results like that these days because there's so many changes, like pretty much on a monthly basis. So make sure that whatever review you're reading is using the latest information as we do here.
It's a gimmick. I mean, it's our gimmick. Our gimmick is that we retest stuff all the time. So, whatever. It works for us. It's incredibly painful to retest everything every month or two. But
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, if you're somehow not familiar with the Ryzen 9 3950X, or if you need a refresher, it's the 16-core Ryzen 9 processor. So there was already a 12-core, the 3900X. This is the 16-core. So both of those chiplets on there are 2 of them, have all 8 cores enabled. And not only that, they've been very, very specially binned. They've been cherry-picked to run it up to 4.7 gigahertz for a single core boost clock. So, but overall a little bit lower, like 3.5 gigahertz versus 3.8 with the Ryzen 9 3900X, which you'd expect. Josh, isn't it reasonable to expect that clocks would actually go down the more and more cores you have coexisting in a tiny space like that?
In theory, but we don't know the bins that they're using, really. So you're going to put more stuff in a substrate and more chips and more transistors that are active. Yes. In theory, your clock speeds are supposed to go down, but there's enough tricks and things that they've done that it doesn't, it doesn't scale linearly down like that. It's kind of interesting.
I wish everything scaled linearly, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you look at Cinebench, everyone's favorite AMD benchmark, it does scale linearly. And if you look, even the 18-core behemoth, the i9 10980XE, you'd think that with that core advantage that you'd have better performance from Intel, and that actually turned out really not to be the case, at least with the benchmarks I chose to use. So 3950X, even with only 16 cores, comes out on top, much better single core performance and better overall multi-core performance, just higher clocks. It's got to be higher clocks. And it just in any of the CPU tests, you would imagine, of course, the 3950X has 4 cores and 8 threads on that 3900X. So if you're just comparing those 2 Ryzen 9 processors, you're getting a lot better performance, of course, from the one with more cores. But what was interesting to me is that it pretty consistently, like I said, was beating the $1,000 Core i9. So good job, AMD. It's a processor that you can actually now finally start buying at MSRP. It's come down and it's starting to have a little bit.
Did you expect them to actually have reasonable stock at MSRP anytime soon?
No, I've been on this podcast complaining endlessly about it, and we talked about it being the skinniest bin. This is a joke. Why would they have to go with a higher clock speed too? And this is ridiculous. And now it's like
suddenly the market's just got, man, you can buy one.
I was getting eBay recommendations because, of course, I did a lot of searches for this when it wasn't available. And so I get all these alerts like, oh, you might like this. And it's like $7.99, buy it now. Really? There's only a $50 markup on eBay now. That's when you know it's become mainstream.
Pretty common.
Was when, that doesn't even cover the eBay fees. So they're selling that at a loss at this point.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all from AMD. I thought that it was just going to be trickle out. There'd be a couple that'd be available, and they'd be quickly snatched up, and they'd just kind of keep it out there on the promise, and then we'd have Zen 3, and they would be swept underneath the rug. But no, this is kind of their version of the 9590. They just got many of them out there. But how many people buy a $750 processor?
Don't compare this to the 9590. That's not fair.
Come on.
That was not a good part.
No.
But hey, one thing that I was looking forward to testing with this CPU was gaming, because I thought, okay, this is those higher single core clocks, but then there's the lower base clock speed. So what's the relationship there? And I did testing at 1080p, which I had been doing. I redid all these tests because I wanted 1080p high. I'd been using 1080 Ultra, thinking let's put a little bit more on the CPU than the GPU, lower the settings down a little bit. And in the first test, Far Cry 5, which is a DirectX 11 test, within the margin of error, and any 3 benchmarks I ran, because I ended up having to run this like 9 times, because it would literally, one set of benchmarks would go to the 3900X, and then the next set would go to the 3950X. So then I did it again just to see if it swung back the other way, and I ended up with 130.7 FPS for the 3950X and 130.3 for the 3900X, which tells you absolutely nothing. They're tied. So there's no difference. And at that point, I'm thinking, okay, is somehow even at 1080 high, Far Cry 5 is completely GPU bound on an RTX 2080? So I made the decision with all these benchmarks to go back and re-benchmark them at 1280 by 720, so 720p, which is insane. And if you read the comments, at least one person was vocal about, that's so unrealistic. Why would you play games at 720p with a $750 processor? It's funny because I think it was that last CPU review where somebody complained that testing at 1080 is still too GPU bound. You need to be testing at 720 or lower to really see the difference.
640 by 480 or go home, mate.
But
I would do one by
let's be
one
clear,
if I could.
as you are alluding to and indicating, let's just clear it, because we did get a couple questions, including on Twitter, about this. When you're testing a CPU, you test, one way to look at CPU testing is to test at a very low resolution so that you eliminate the GPU bottleneck. You're kind of looking at the CPU, what can the CPU do in terms of raw baseline performance. Now, that is valid in giving you that information. You can also argue that that's ridiculous because no one will game at that. So you should just do it at a higher resolution, like 1440, 4K, something more realistic, and let the GPU bottleneck play out.
Down.
Yeah,
because you won't see a difference.
Right. And that's
even at 1440, you're literally not going to see any difference at all. Because here's a little secret. I actually tested all of these internally, so I have the numbers at 1440p, 1080p, Ultra, 1080p high, and 720p high. So all of these, and I tested more games than I released because I didn't have all the numbers completely right for Civilization 6 Gathering Storm. But if we go into the results here, Metro Exodus, this is a DirectX 12. Again, no difference. Like, there's a difference between the Intel processor and the Ryzen 9 at the top. Like the Core i9 9900KS, that's fast in gaming. And in fact, you'll see it even more in some of the other tests. But it really is still a faster processor for gaming. So if all you're doing is gaming, I will begrudgingly hand this to Intel. They consistently had higher performance with the 9900KS. But that's a 5 gigahertz processor. It was best case scenario for Intel. The $1,000 10980XE, that was consistently the worst performer with the same graphics card, with the same memory speed, everything else being the same. At least, the one caveat to this is that I ran everything at its official memory speed. So the Ryzen 9 processors, if you look in the system setup, it's 3200 memory. And if you look at the Intel processors, it's like 2933 or whatever the actual Intel processor technically like natively supported, whatever the max frequency was. So no overclocking the memory, no XMP stuff, just literally like, oh, it supports 3200. Well, I'm running it at 3200. I manually set it that way. So that's the only possible advantage Ryzen would have over that 10980XE. But that's still 2933 memory. It's not slow. Going from Metro Exodus at 1080, where it was literally tied, like 101.7 versus 101.5, the Ryzen 9 showed a little bit of a gap. If you move down to 720, that's why I did it, just to see, hey, will there be a difference? And yeah, it was like 3.5 frames per second in favor of the 3900X. And actually, this was pretty consistent. I reran a bunch of tests because I didn't believe it at first, but sure enough, I'm guessing it's the more multi-thread optimized games. The games that could take advantage of more than one core consistently, it went to the 3900X because it has a higher base clock speed. So that's something to think about. Don't think you're going to buy the 3950X, and because it says up to 4.7 gigahertz on the box, you're consistently getting higher frequencies, because the 12 core, in theory, could be running a little bit higher all core consistently if you're not overclocking. But the rest of the stuff is just academic. Like the most ridiculous test of all is World of Tanks Encore at the medium preset, which turns everything way down at 1280 by 720. And we're talking, the i9 9900KS averaging 421.3 frames per second. This is just ridiculous. So now any tiny advantage that one CPU might have over the other gets amplified. So we saw the 3950X on top in that one with 387.9 in this extremely valid test. But one thing I mentioned rather sarcastically in the comments to the one complainant, I don't know if that's the right word, was really, who would buy all these processors themselves and then just run benchmarks on them and then make charts of those benchmarks? Reviewing processors is not a realistic use case. So you could argue, I guess, both sides. I will quickly mention power consumption, though, because we talked about the binning. This thing, and the power consumption tests were run using Cinebench, the all-core test, Cinebench R20. And even with all cores at 100%, the peak power consumption that I measured from the wall was 13 watts lower. And this is consistent for the 3950X with its 16 cores, which total system, including the RTX 2080 and an SSD and 32 gigs of RAM with a 80 plus gold rated power supply, still only pulled 201 watts total from the wall under full 100% load on 16 cores, where the 3900X with its 12 cores pulled 214 watts from the wall. And then if we look at that 10980XE, that system, everything else the same, 295 watts from the wall. So these are still sipping power compared to what we see from Intel, even Intel at lower clock speeds with the high-end desktop stuff. And go ahead.
What a change.
Yeah. And look at the 9900KS. Like, yeah, it's better in gaming, but it takes like 80,
damn near 100 watts more.
8 watts. Yeah.
88 watts.
Because it's really just a pre-overclocked processor. So
I wonder what the 7700K would look like.
I don't know. Not great.
I'm going to make you test it.
It does pull less than the 9900. I know that.
Yeah.
Finally, price per core. I made a little chart just to show you, based on launch price, how much these processors cost per core. And the Ryzen 9 3900X is the best value of this group. And it's $41.58 per core if you buy it for $500. And the 3950X is about a $5.20 premium over that. It's $46.81. But still, I mean, I was impressed. I hadn't figured this out before. Like, I knew that it was a little bit cheaper per core to buy the 3900, but 3950X, $5 premium per core, and you're getting a hyper-bend 16-core monster. So it changed my mind. Just doing this review changed my mind about it. I thought it was maybe a little overpriced when it was announced at $749. No, not really. I mean, this is higher performance in multi-threaded applications than even an 18-core Intel $1,000 high-end desktop part. And it's $250 less than the Intel part. And it's $250 more than the other Ryzen 9. But there's just nothing else like it. There's no other desktop class processor with anywhere near this core count. And it's just kind of staggering that this even exists to buy.
And kind of on that price per core point, I wanted to say too, a few episodes ago, we got some negative feedback because at one point we said something like, the AMD side's getting expensive. And I just want to clarify on that. We weren't talking in terms of like value or price to performance. We were just, I think it was Josh and I talking about a point. And the point was basically 2 years ago, the top end AMD processor was $1,000. A year ago, it was $2,000. Now it's $4,000. So we weren't saying, okay, well, but you do get a lot of performance for that money. And it certainly beats what Intel has at that price to performance ratio. We were just pointing out that, that first gen Threadripper, that 1950X was amazing. It was like, oh, all these cores, $1,000. It's incredible. And just to see that the best is getting more expensive, which, if you're an AMD fan, you should be to a certain degree happy about, because that's the company being more financially healthy, taking advantage of this lead they have while they can, before Intel can catch up. So, but
Totally different argument than on the GPU side.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
They're very disconnected right now.
Yeah.
Yes. ATI versus AMD, two different companies.
All right. Well, let's, any other thoughts on the 3950X?
What'd you do with your other one you bought?
Well,
just throw it in the fire?
Yeah, right.
It's here.
We have them.
And I validated the claims of the website that said it was guaranteed to run at 4.1 gigahertz all cores. So I did that. It does.
Nice.
Without changing the voltage. That's nice. We could throw up some.
You're just waiting for a 570 with two chips, aren't you? You want two sockets?
Nice,
multi-socket support.
Yeah, no.
We
does
just
more
all
sense.
the threads.
ECS will release one with racing stripes at Computex. The dual
Or EVGA.
Yeah, well,
They'll
if
have like
EVGA
a
ever
bridge
joins
chip
Team
on
Red.
it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, in a big way. They'll have a new black edition. It'll be the X575X2 chipset.
Nah.
Okay.
Well, check out that review, the full 3950X review, and all the charts we talked about are over at PC Per. So go check that out. And we'll be having more of the related reviews with the Threadripper 3960 and 3970.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. Well, thanks to Kellen, who found one for us at Micro Center and was able to send it to us. So support from the whole team, the whole community here to get us those processors so that we can get them
initially.
tested.
And then, of course, a lovely package showed up last week that was sent to me from CES. I was going back and forth with AMD for the last couple of months, and finally I just got a note back saying, good news from CES. Like, really? And I was expecting a 3950X finally, and I got this package and opened it up. Like, this is a little too heavy for just a 3950X. And sure enough, there was a 3960X in there too. So we're totally hooked up now. We've got the 3950X, 3960X, 3970X. We're not on AMD's S list. They sampled us. It just took a while.
Yeah.
But hey,
and
we're back.
Just to address some of the comments, we don't have a 3990X just yet, but we'll get one one way or another.
Do they?
Yeah. I don't know. No. I haven't heard, but
I don't know. I feel like there'll be a few really elite people sampled that one, but I don't know if we're elite enough.
Yeah, it's a $4,000 processor, so
yeah.
Well, I already got Amex to up our credit limit on the company credit card, we'll get one.
No.
No, that's okay. We run up the charges and then we declare bankruptcy and it's all fine.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah,
all right, that's fine.
It'll be a foolproof plan. Anyway, let's continue talking about some news. Now, this is a bit of an older story. This came out at CES, but I don't think we've talked about this quite yet. But it's kind of a big story. It's updates to the GeForce drivers to add a max frame rate option. So why is this a big deal, guys?
Do you like VSync?
Do you like added latency to your gaming experience?
Yeah. Do you feel dirty enabling it?
I do. I don't ever admit to it.
As do I. Even with what was that last one? Rage, where even that didn't help you tear. So what they've done with the relatively latest Game Ready driver is introduce a bunch of features, and as you said, the most interesting one has to be max frame rate. And by popping into your 3D settings, you can set a max frame rate, which from a couple of the reviews, it needs a little bit of improvement. For instance, it was off by, almost a chunk of a percent, not a full percent. But they were finding by limiting it to 62 frames, they were getting a solid 60 in some of the websites that tested this. And by that, I mean a solid 60. Almost as good as VSync, which limits it completely, but does some bad things in the background for you if you're enjoy your Twitch games. The other thing is that if you've got a monitor which can go up higher, and you've got a GPU that can drive it, you're not limited to 60 frames per second like VSync, or 30 frames if you really want to screw around. You can pick whatever you want, and if you can match your game's performance to your monitor and set your monitor to the same refresh rate, away you go. It apparently looks utterly gorgeous. We've been begging them for years to sort of introduce this at the driver level, and this is the first time we've actually seen it, and it really works. I'm sure that we need to test it. I mean, my 1080 isn't going to really do too well on it, but I'm looking forward to getting a chance to take a look at this and see how well it does, especially on a nice G-Sync or FreeSync monitor, where you're actually trying to aim for certain on a slider scale, where if you know what, I can play this at 82 frames and it's pretty solid, so let's just lock it there and away I go. It's kind of nice.
And there was also another feature for variable rate shading for use of making your pixels work better in a VR setting, applying
Yes.
the resolution to where you're likely looking rather than the whole image, right?
And I'd love to see the algorithm they're doing for that, because human eyes are freaking weird, man.
Yeah, and I'd never, even the whole VR in general, like I can never focus on anything anyway. So interesting. We'll see how that works. But that's in the latest Game Ready driver. It's 441.87. So check that out and check out the feature there. Again, you can change that max frame rate setting in the NVIDIA control panel app. Okay, and then another story here on FireFox. Again, this is I think a week old now, but just in case you missed the notice, update FireFox if you haven't done it yet.
Stop ignoring that little nag up there when Firefox opens and it says that you're not running the latest version.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be like me and say, not now.
It's unimportant.
You should probably update it.
Yeah, so we've got 72.0.1 is the safe version that gets rid of that vulnerability. And 11, there was
Unless
one major
you really
one.
like getting rickrolled or having your machine taken over.
Yeah, sure. So, just check that out. Make sure you update if you're using Firefox. All right. So again, I'm sorry. We have a lot of stories here we're trying to get through. Big update or big news from Corsair at CES. We wrote about it at the site last week. But in case you haven't heard, they've got some new coolers out. So they've got a new line of their, they're known for their all-in-one coolers. Of course, they've got a new line there, the Pro XT liquid cooler. It's a 360, they've got different, let's see. One is
240, 280, and 360.
Yeah, okay, 240, 280, and 360. Okay. And those are priced between $120 and $160
There's
MSRP.
drop-in replacements for the existing. So no price increase or anything, just some new features. I actually have one of the new ones in. I think I have the 280. I need to get to that. So we'll see if there's any kind of performance improvement from the last series.
Okay, yeah, and the more interesting, I think, thing from Corsair is that they introduced their first air cooler.
In a while. In 10 years.
I guess that's true. Okay, yeah, they used to have, but...
they're A50, and which I've still got running. It's a great cooler.
I think the A70 was the last one, and I had to look at our news story for that, which was it was like almost 10 years ago, 2010 CES, I think. But it's this is big. This is along the lines of, we always use that as an example, the Noctua, like the NHD 15, but it's not a dual tower cooler. It's one big tower with a fan on each side. And even though it kind of looks like it in this photo, there is no lighting. It's just reflecting the lighting inside the case. This is a plain kind of like no nonsense fans and a big heat sink. And this thing, it weighs, I think I figured it out, it was 3.2 pounds. This is not light. It's 1,460 grams, 169 millimeters tall. So it's a knock to a D15. It's 1,320 grams. So this is 140 grams heavier than a D15. So we will see what the performance is like. I have one of these as well. And look at that pre-applied thermal paste. Look at that.
Oh, yeah.
Look at that pattern.
Nice.
Which I said in the news post, it puts
that is kind of sexy.
5-dot thermal paste application pattern to shame.
Yeah, Corsair always, because they have a pre-applied thermal paste on their all-in-one water coolers too, and it's usually a nice, very clean, smooth layer that works well. But this will be good for Maury's motherboard reviews, right? You know, the oversized, crazy power supply. CPU cooler.
Yeah. One of the cool things about this, though, which kind of negates what Maury does, is he takes a D15 or and he just showcases how incredibly large and ungangly that thing is, and does it interfere with VRMs, like the heat sinks, that sort of thing. This one, the fan on each side is on this ratcheting system where you just raise and lower the fan in its slider and then lock it into place. So you can just move it out of the way of tall memory and then lock it without having to reattach the fan, which sounds awesome. That's the thing I'm most excited about with this design.
I'd like to test that.
Let's see, what was the price on this again?
$100.
$100.
Yep.
Very nice. Okay, and yeah, so we'll look forward to reviews or at least some hands-on experience with these from Sebastian.
Yeah, we'll just do a video where I just raise and lower the fans, and we'll listen. It'll be a
two-person lift, man.
Yeah.
Two-person lift.
I'll bring over
1.5 kilos.
Fly Maury up there with his and compare and contrast.
Yeah, Maury can stand here with me and like, Maury, you lift that fan and I'll lift this fan, and then we'll put some really tall RAM in there.
Well, he always has that huge heat sink that he takes all the pictures with his motherboard. Yes. So, yeah, he needs to bring that on. Hopefully, TSA will allow him to.
You know,
hey, we're gonna be our credit's gonna be maxed out on Threadripper processors. He's gonna be Greyhounding it up. TSA, come on,
Maury, we love you, and if you pay your own way, I'll even let you be on our own show.
Yeah, hey, if he wants to pay his own way, he can do whatever he wants. But we'll bring him up. But he's busting it. He's busting it.
I'll help him.
I'll put him up. Those giant Noctua Threadripper air coolers as well.
Well, hey, I Megabus. They'll go to Vancouver, right?
God, I don't know.
Megabus.
Yeah, it was that UK bus line that opened up. At least are they still in business here? They opened up in the States for a while. They're like they're the Ryanair of buses, basically.
Yes. Well, I was thinking with a name like Megabus, wasn't that like that late 70s TV show about the giant super fast bus that you remember that?
I don't think I
was thinking of Airwolf,
saw that one.
That was a helicopter.
No, it's I'll find it, but yeah, it's a giant bus that Megabus.
I'm looking it up.
I missed that. Well, if we can find footage,
not ringing a bell.
From $1.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy a Megabus ticket for $1.
Yeah, but you gotta
and you end up in Sarnia somehow, no matter where you started from.
Right.
Canadian joke, you don't get it.
Hey Jim, let's talk about a low price GPU.
Is it a knockout?
It's a real knockout. Hey guys, you remember how at CES AMD / ATI announced the new Radeon RX 5600 XT, which is this cut down 5700. It's got lower clock speeds, and even though it has the same core count, but they took some of the memory away. Now it's 6 gigs, and they cut down the memory bus from 256 to 192. So that's the new $279 Radeon card. So what does NVIDIA have to say about this? Well, they sort of quietly lowered the price of the RTX 2060 to $299, where it had been $249. Or I'm sorry, $349. Now it is $299. And then EVGA releases this product called the KO, this isn't my take. Like this is not something clever headline I came up with. Let me quote EVGA's actual marketing page for this product. Quote, the new EVGA GeForce RTX 2060 KO is here to knock out the competition at a value you cannot pass up, end quote. And knockout was in all caps, by the way. So the competition is obviously that 5600 XT. And by knocking $20 off the price of the newly price dropped RTX 2060, they've created a product that matches the price but has measurably higher performance. Like an RTX 2060 is going to be a higher performing part than the RX 5600 XT. It just has to be. Look at there's no competition. AMD themselves pitted it against a 1660 Ti on all of their charts. That 10% advantage that they were advertising at CES will be gone at this price point if RTX 2060s are available in the market for the same price. So I feel like, I don't know, I will poll the group here. Do you think $279 is an appropriate price for the RX 5600 XT, even without the existence of a $279 2060?
You can't overstate the value of PCI 4.0.
No, brother. Okay. I mean, if it was a buy 8 connection like the 5500 XT is, and there were stories like I can't remember who did it first, but if you took the 5500 XT 4 gigabyte version and put it in a memory constrained situation where it had to start using system memory in place of VRAM, it would start to the performance would be a lot better if you had a PCIe 4 motherboard, like an X570 motherboard. Mm-hmm. So because the pipe is just bigger between system memory and the card. I don't think that's a realistic scenario, so I never did any of that testing to validate it, because I'm like, of course, if you exceed the frame buffer of a graphics card, your performance goes down. Do we not remember the lessons taught to us by NVIDIA with the 3.5 gigabyte 970?
No, so we remember nothing.
We don't even want to play that game with this generation, but yeah. But I feel like ATI/AMD, they charge as much as they possibly can for these GPUs. And then they argue, well, if you put it up against the thing that costs the same from NVIDIA, and they did that with the Radeon 7, and it was like trading blows with the RTX 2080 at the time. And they were both $699 cards. So depending on the game, one might have slightly better performance than the other. Okay, but then they were ignoring the fact that, they don't have hardware ray tracing support, which is, of debatable importance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can go down this road where you debate both of them. Like, do you need 16 gigabytes of frame buffer? No. And then they said, well, there are these scenarios where you actually can use more than 8 gigabytes. And anyway, yeah. And at some point, it just became kind of ridiculous. And the product was EOL'd basically as soon as the RX 5700 XT came out, because the 5700 XT was within like 5% of the performance of that card for, $400, $450. So I look at this announcement, and the two things I think of immediately are that the Radeon card is probably too expensive and needs to drop down to $259. And why the hell does the GTX 1660 Ti exist? That's the other thing I think of. If you're selling an RTX 2060 for $279 after a $20 instant rebate, why would you keep the 1660 Ti on the market at $279? And then, of course, I say that, and I looked it up, and I added a screenshot to the review or the news post, because there's already a $20 blanket rebate across the board on the 1660 Ti. So I suspect that $259.99 will be the new price of the 1660 Ti, and that the RTX 2060 will settle somewhere between $279 and $299. But I feel like AMD has to do something with the pricing of these GPUs, because it's just not
sensible.
No. They kill it on the CPU side. They're absolutely crushing it.
Yep.
They have the best value in enthusiast desktop, period. And look at any chart that shows CPU sales, retail. Look at in the enthusiast forums, look at just the chatter on social media. People are excited about AMD. AMD is back in a big way. The last 3 years with Ryzen, Zen turned the company around. Look at their stock price. They're at 20-year high, and it is the CPU platform to get. It's the sexy platform on CPU and server right now. And GPU, it's boring. It's more of the same underperforming stuff that costs too much money.
But does AMD really want to get into a race to the bottom with NVIDIA? It seems like they're kind of just, they're pacing NVIDIA in terms of performance and price, but they're not trying to get into a price war with them until, maybe they just don't want to until, they have better products. Right now, they're competitive, and that's about it. With Ryzen Zen 2, not only are they competitive, but they're doing better. I mean, overall. So, yeah. I mean, I'm always playing devil's advocate, especially about graphic stuff. And don't get me wrong, I'd like to see a $400 2080 Ti. I think that'd be awesome. But
yes,
we're not there. And looking at either company, they're not interested in going there.
Well, and the lead with the Titans proved, at least to NVIDIA, that holy crap, people will pay $1,000 for a graphics card.
Yeah,
are they?
That's the sad thing, because NVIDIA set the bar up here with pricing, and then AMD's like,
people buy them.
We can come up with a product that matches that performance and then charge the same. What happened to the days of you could buy an AMD card and it was either 99 or 100% of the performance of a similar NVIDIA card, and it was less money, and it was the sensible way to go. And then of course there was the driver disparity, which has gotten so much better. I mean, we're getting day one drivers consistently from AMD now. That did not used to be the case. And yeah, you'd save money, but maybe the driver support wasn't as good, and NVIDIA had a reputation for better drivers, at least as far as I was concerned, even in the last decade or so. But they've basically caught up, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's, well, we have to justify the fact that we have bigger driver teams now, and we have more people working on that division, but it can't be anywhere near the numbers and the effort they put into the CPU side of things. I just think it's telling, to go a little inside baseball here, it's telling that if you get a review sample, like when I got my 5500 XT, anytime you get something from Radeon, it comes from ATI in Canada. You actually get a notice that something from ATI is coming. It says ATI on the invoice. So I feel like internally, and I know Kyle had alluded to this in a scathing piece up on his site, which you can probably still find on the Internet Archive a couple years ago, that internally it basically still was two different companies, and he thought they should split because it seems that culturally they are a little bit like in ATI and AMD still. Mm-hmm. And the graphic side is just marketing. Like, let's find the right combination of games and resolution and settings to show how we're very competitive with NVIDIA at a specific price point. Where on the CPU side, Lisa Su goes out there and says, here's a huge lead, and here's another big win, and here's another gigantic win, and we have the advantage in process technology, and they have no answer for us whatsoever. And on
something side, arose by any other name.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also it does seem like even though the pricing was completely out of whack when RTX launched, from what we've seen and what they've been able to bring technologically, and what we've seen in leaks for Ampere, NVIDIA is much stronger than Intel was to fight this new fight from AMD. And NVIDIA is in a better position in terms of the pricing. Again, yeah, way out of whack, but they're bringing, technologically, they're in a position to respond and to continue to fight there. But also, I think too, we're in this weird middle period where Navi launches halfway through the RTX life cycle. And we don't have big Navi yet. And Lisa at CES did tell various people that we will see that this year. So maybe once, NVIDIA's got their 3000 series out and AMD is able to bring big Navi and then fulfill in the rest of that lineup, maybe we'll see pricing adjust at that point. And there are still advantages. There are advantages, I joked, but there are advantages to PCIe 4.0 for content creation, certain gaming situations. it's not irrelevant. It's just,
No, it's not irrelevant.
Yeah, and it'll
It's kind
get
of like
better.
the PCIe 4 argument feels a little bit like the RTX argument at the end of 2018 and last year, where it's the technology is impressive. It's impressive that they offer it without any kind of a premium. It's not like you're buying a PCIe 3 version, but they offer the PCIe 4 version for $20 more. You're getting that baked in, and if you can figure out a way to take advantage of it, then it's there for you. But I don't know. I think they check so many boxes on the GPU side where, for instance, as far as driver parity goes, they have integer scaling now as well. That was one of the last big updates to the Radeon software. So that's great. And I've tested out. I actually think that the Radeon software has gotten to the point where it's easier to use than NVIDIA software. It looks cleaner. It's like big buttons. It's a much more modern.
It's been
UI.
gamified.
Yeah. Which is fine.
Hey,
It's been
I
gamified.
got to interrupt here. Got to interrupt. I got to go.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
call in.
And I'll keep that thought in mind about the big
I'll
buttons.
vouch for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to go.
All right.
So
Josh,
you
Don't
guys
touch on the big button, Josh.
have a great night. The big, shiny, candy red apple button.
No.
Good
Push
night.
the small buttons in the proper order and then pray to the
All right,
silicon
well,
god.
we'll take this opportunity to say goodbye to Josh, and we'll break to hear from our sponsor this week.
Josh.
Goodbye, Josh.
Josh, I
What?
love you.
Pause him like that.
You too.
I love you.
Bye.
Hang up. Perfect.
All right, let me.
Leave him there. Ah!
All right.
Why didn't you leave him?
Well, you want me to leave him there the whole show, pointing at us?
Yes.
I want to see
There you
him.
go.
There we go. Look at that. But it'll confuse people. I bet.
That's even better.
Let's just
But
leave that
now,
up. to the
a
rest of the
word
show.
from our sponsor. No, not the nostril. Not the nostril. And now he looks more like dramatic woodchuck, to be honest.
Yeah, that works. All right. Yes. So we'll stop right now. We'll hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back. Today's show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Now, at this point, I hope all of you know how important a VPN is for protecting your privacy and security while browsing online. But of course, another benefit of a VPN is that it can change your location, at least as far as the websites and services you're connecting to are concerned. And this is important because there's so much content online these days that is starting to become region locked. It's only available in certain areas. And that stinks if you're traveling abroad and you want to access your home Netflix account or watch your local sports teams. Or if you're just living in a region and you can't access something that's just region locked somewhere else. For example, here in the US, we don't get all the exclusive UK content that's available on Netflix, for example. Great shows like Doctor Who, Blackadder, even shows like Star Trek Discovery, which are available on Netflix abroad, but aren't available here or are available here on other services that you may not have access to. And that's where a VPN like ExpressVPN comes in, because it allows you to change your location to a VPN server in that region and suddenly open up access to all of that content. ExpressVPN hides your IP address and lets you control where you want sites to think you're located. Another example is, anime. If you like anime, there's obviously anime services here in the US, but there's a ton of content in Japan. And ExpressVPN has servers in Japan all over the world. Pretty much any country you could think of, you're going to be able to find an ExpressVPN server there that's going to give you a fast connection to all that content. And not just Netflix, it's Hulu, BBC iPlayer, YouTube. It works great for all of these services. Now, of course, any VPN service can do this, but the reason I choose ExpressVPN, and I've been an ExpressVPN customer for over 3 years now, is because they have that great availability with all of those servers in all of those regions, and they're fast. When I first started looking at VPN services about 3 years ago, I compared a bunch of them, and by far and consistently, regardless of server that I chose and region, ExpressVPN was the fastest. You're not going to be bottlenecked, because that's the key factor with VPNs is it gives you all that security and all these features by routing your traffic through them. And that makes them the bottleneck. So it doesn't matter if you've got gigabit fiber at your house, if your VPN service is, at dial-up speeds, that's what your experience is going to be. So you need your VPN service to be fast, and ExpressVPN is the fastest that I've used. And that means especially when considering media playback. There's no buffering, there's no lag. You can stream at HD, at UHD. You know, you still need a fast internet connection at your source, but ExpressVPN is not going to be your bottleneck. And of course, ExpressVPN is also compatible with all of your devices, not just your PC or Mac. It works with your phones, your consoles, smart TVs, and more. So like I said, I've been a happy paying ExpressVPN customer for years, and we really want you to check it out. And we've got a great offer for you here. If you go to expressvpn.com/PCPer, you can get an extra 3 months of service when you sign up for a 12-month plan. So that's 15 months for the price of 12. expressvpn.com/PCPer. Support the show, watch what you want, when you want, and get all of those great protection and privacy features that a quality VPN brings you with ExpressVPN. expressvpn.com/PCPer for 3 free months. All right, back to the show. All right, and we're back, and Josh is with us in spirit in the upper right box if you're watching the video version.
Or he may actually be with us. He could be trying to fake us out here.
True, he can hold incredibly still for long periods of time.
Yes.
So
He took Guardians of the Galaxy way too close to heart.
yeah. But let's continue on with. Or actually, were there any other closing thoughts on the 2060 KO?
Well, I was
It's a
going to
real
say,
knockout.
yeah, it is a knockout. I was going to say, and it's a bit of a lead into the next one, is that NVIDIA was at one point a one-trick pony, and that gave them an advantage, especially over AMD, who's trying to do two things at once, but also over Intel that was spreading themselves all over the place. But it's not that they've not spread out. It's just that they've realized that what they've been developing for the longest time has a whole bunch more applications, which is why we're seeing the HPC stuff, the deep learning for cars, the various ways that they're expanding in non-consumer ways, which gives them some fairly deep pockets to, make a stand against AMD, or at least the ATI part of it, as we were sort of discussing with how the graphics cards go. But now comes the rub, is that Intel is nudging in on AMD's territory too on the graphics side, which is something that we're not used to seeing, but Ryan is very proud of. As we do still talk to him, and he does find us very amusing. But one of the things I ran into was the Razer Blade Stealth. There is a specific model, which is the
Shroud version, is the Kentucky Shroud model?
No, it's not powered by a Kentucky Shroud, strangely enough. The Mercury Weight model comes with an i7 1065 G7. So one of those configurable ones that goes from 15 watt to 25 watt. They've chosen to leave it at 15 watt. But they're selling it as a gaming laptop. Now, any of the other Razer Blade Stealth 13s have a 1060 or a 1650 in them, rather. This one doesn't. There is no discrete GPU in this gaming laptop. You know what the scary thing is? For the vast majority of people who, don't really go more demanding than, say, Overwatch or Fortnite, you can hit 60 frames a second, no problem, on this bloody under 2 kilo laptop. It's like 1.5 kilo.
Well, you can hit 60 at maybe medium. 720 medium settings at 1080, even I think at medium, because so this is to remind everyone, this is the Ice Lake, the top end Ice Lake processor, the 1065 G7, which we reviewed initially in that Dell XPS 2-in-1. We've since got a Surface Laptop 3 that has it, and it's a very good ultra low power 15-ish watt TDP processor that doubled Intel's graphics performance. Now, they were starting off in a very bad spot with the UHD
this
630.
is the thing. Anything they do is going to be better.
Yeah, and so
I didn't expect this much better.
Right. They told us, they starting at the end of 2018, I think it was, they came out and said, hey, Gen 11, because this is their Gen 11 platform, this is going to double performance. And we said, we'll see. And sure enough, it did. And it did catch up to what AMD has now, not what they just announced with Ryzen 4000 Mobile, which is Zen 2, but with their Zen Plus Ryzen 3000 Mobile, the Picasso platform that they call it, it did catch up to the Vega graphics in that platform. Now, this new stuff is a whole different story. AMD says even though it's still using Vega with Ryzen 4000, it's much more performant than the last version. But looking at just this, looking at just Ice Lake, it is a very nice platform for, I mean, I wouldn't buy it as a gaming laptop. That's what's strange about this, because it's not going to give you that kind of performance you expect from a gaming laptop.
How many people are only playing CSGO or one of those friggin' MOBAs? Right. And this thing is going to be brilliant for it.
Yeah, if you need gaming on the go, and that's how I viewed and how I positioned when I was reviewing it. You know, it's basically, this is your ultralight work laptop, but hey, you can also game if you need to. You can play those lower demanding games at the lower settings and get a decent frame rate, which you couldn't do on Intel before. That was exclusive to AMD, and so now Intel's caught up in that regard. But man, I mean, I wouldn't, if you think, I mean, even for the average consumer, if they think I'm going to buy a gaming laptop, they're probably going to be disappointed in the performance of this. I mean, I would imagine it's great battery life. The CPU side of it is great for that class of processor. But man, that's bizarre. I mean, it's good to see, you know, Razer, you want all companies to have a great range of products so that you can choose, you know, how to go. And I assume this has Thunderbolt, so you could do an eGPU when you're, you know, at home or something.
It might take up the power connector.
Well, most eGPUs provide like, you know, 85 to 100 watts charging.
Yeah, this only wants 65.
Yeah, so it should be fine there.
I'm just curious to see how well this works out.
Mm-hmm.
It could just be
sorry, you.
I'm just going to say, the confusion we have about this product being called a gaming laptop could just be simply a matter of branding. Maybe they just forgot to, like, the full name of this, like the Facebook gaming laptop. You know, because then it makes perfect sense.
Razer Blade Stealth 13 Mercury Write Facebook gaming machine.
Yeah, it's the bejeweled laptop. You've never seen frame rates like this in puzzle games before.
So yeah, I mean, this is an interesting choice for Razer, and you know, to position it like that. And like I said, if you go into this knowing it's a 15-watt TDP and what to expect there, and if you go, like, it looks like it's a similar form factor to the, well, it looks like it's actually a little thicker than the Dell XPS 13, but you're not going to get, you can look at existing products that run that 1065 G7 and get a good idea of what you can expect for graphics performance here.
Isn't part of the problem with this, because I have 2 points to make, and I know I talked too much already, but I always, even on a thin light, even on a business laptop, I'm always frustrated in certain circumstances with a lack of really good display output support. So if you have a more powerful GPU, even if you're not using it for gaming, you typically have greater display support, like multiple, like 4K 60 display output or something like that. So the potential for improved external display support at higher resolutions and refresh rates is something that I would look into for this as a business option, just because it has a more powerful dedicated graphics solution. But other than that, I don't know. I think the problem with this is really just price. If this was $1,000 laptop or $1,100 laptop and it was being sold as a really stylish thin and light that had additional functionality because of the graphical capabilities, that's great. But 1,499 pounds. I'll have to look at what the US selling price is.
$1,500 US as well.
Oh, okay. So $1,500.
Right at the end, it's $1,500. Well, I mean, a Dell without that is going to cost you $1,000 on the small form factor.
Yeah, I think
I know, but do I want to pay $500 more just because of the potential for adequate gaming performance at lower resolutions and detail setting?
Well, while you were talking, Sebastian, I just quickly pulled up my 1065 G7 XPS review. So let's just quickly go through the gaming benchmarks of that. So this was the XPS 13, which is the Ice Lake, same processor as this Razer Blade, and the ThinkPad T495, which was, again, at the time, AMD's best performing part in this, the 3700U. And so looking at Civ 6, 1080p medium, The XPS, the Intel part gets an average of 30 frames per second. F1 2018 at 720p gets you close to that 60 frames. It got to 59 average. 1080p F1 down to 40. Far Cry 5 at 20. Again, at 1080p and low, but it's a big game.
That.
Yeah. Grand Theft Auto 5 at 1080p low, 43. Between, well, the different passes of the benchmark between 43 and 55.
Yeah, but that's playable.
Yeah, that is playable. You're right. And considering where it came from on Whiskey Lake before this, that's a huge leap. But again, not 60. You're not really hitting 60 in any of these games. Although, again, these are bigger games. Okay, here's Rocket League. 1080p on the performance preset with Rocket League, 76 frames per second. So there you go. If you're a Rocket League player, if you're, as Jeremy said, MOBA player, World of Warships, 67. So yeah, there are some games, but I just I really hope whoever goes into this to buy this Razer knows what they're getting, and doesn't just think gaming laptop, I can play AAA games at acceptable frame rates, because that's not the case.
Because one of the kickers is that they'll go in and they'll look at the Razer Blade Stealth 13 and there'll be 3 models.
Yeah, that's
and this one's kind of cheap, this one's really expensive, and this one, holy crap, that's really expensive. What you're looking at is this one and 2 that have the 1650 in it, one that has a 4K monitor, one that doesn't.
Yeah.
All the same branding. I've run into people who bitched and screamed when they dropped, $2,000 on a gaming laptop, and it's heavy. I can't play it because the battery dies in no time at all. And when I actually really want to do something that's hard, it's not actually that good. And a few of them have picked up something, similar to this on the AMD side. Those rare's dragon teeth that you find the mobile Ryzen platforms. And to be honest, talking to them, once in a friggin' blue moon, do they play something that's as demanding as Far Cry? And at that point, I'm like, yeah, eGPU is a thing, and that's what you look at. So you just buy a nice dock, which is an eGPU. When you get home, you plug it in and away you go. But this thing you'll actually be able to wander around with. None of them picked it up yet, so I don't have any direct feedback. But I'm just curious if there is a section of the market that this is going to make it for, or if it's going to fail horribly.
Well, I mean,
I'm curious.
The volume on these is low in general.
Always.
So we'll see how Razer responds as they update their lineup going forward.
Well, Jim, if the volume is low, just get external speakers.
There you go. Let's jump into our next story. We've got a couple of sort of related stories, as we've talked about. It was 2 days ago now, I guess Tuesday the 14th. We said goodbye to Windows 7, sort of. And you would get there's a nice, if you're running Windows 7 on a non-domain joined PC, you get a nice big screen that says, welcome to, welcome to the era of buying a new PC. You're not going to get updates anymore. Here's a link to a storefront.
Welcome to the jungle.
Yeah.
You should patch or die.
Actually, I think I caught, let me see if I think I grabbed a screenshot of that. Let's see.
Yeah, it's full screen.
Yeah, it's a full screen image.
I think of which arcade game this was. It might have been a Ninja Turtles game. It's like, welcome to die. Actually, I think it might be X-Men. It was X-Men. But yeah, there you go.
X-Men. I remember that
Your
one.
Windows 7 PC is out of support. Full screen nag.
Yep.
Oh, you can click on Don't Remind Me Again. That's nice.
Yes, it does have a Don't Remind Me Again button. And unlike XP's,
which one
it works.
I don't know about that.
Well, for now, I mean, it's been like 48 hours.
But if you're on a domain machine, you get an extortion notice.
Oh, good.
Shame if something had happened to your PC. If you give us $50 per PC, we might give you a security update or two.
Yeah, but we've seen this coming, and
you'd be surprised how many people were in denial.
Well, I mean,
and are still.
Windows 7 is still what, 35% of the market, which is hundreds of millions.
Yeah, 32 or so.
Yeah, it's hundreds of millions of systems worldwide, and so it is a big install base that's now going to have to decide whether to upgrade or to go forge it and count on the fact that Microsoft or the risk of whether Microsoft will release updates if some huge issue becomes
You know what's
becomes
the
apparent.
funniest part about this? Just about every single bank machine that you ever used in your life is running Windows 7 POS. Or the light.
At least they've upgraded from XP embedded.
Yeah, for a while it was
Yes,
XP.
well, I mean, when Microsoft essentially just said, you know what, we're just not going to let XP embedded boot anymore.
Okay.
That was what forced them to go.
Can I just say, in a somewhat tangentially related topic, we were just talking about what were we just talking about? You know what? Cut away from me, Jim. Kill it. I forgot what I was going to say. Something. What was I going to say? I'll think about it. We're talking about market share, and we were talking, like you mentioned, Windows 7 being still like 30% of the market. I was talking to Patrick today on Twitch, and we brought up the Steam hardware survey results. A couple interesting things. One, 1080p monitors have dropped about 10% since the last time I looked. They used to be about 80%.
Really?
69%. And 1440p rising. It was at 6.74%. It's almost 7% of the market now. But a solid 8% of the market is still 1366 by 768. What was interesting, though, looking at these numbers and how, of course, if you look at the top 10 graphics cards, it's like NVIDIA, Intel. And then I think it's the RX 570. It's the first AMD card to show up. And AMD has cried foul about Steam hardware survey results before. And I don't remember who it was, if it was Scott or who it was who was talking about this with AMD, but something about internet cafes in China, like when you log in, it creates, like the new user logs in and it creates another instance of a new system, which then gets logged by Steam as a new computer. So then there's another Intel powered system with an NVIDIA GPU. For example.
That is an issue that Steam allegedly fixed, but it may be back.
AMD says they didn't really fix it. And then if you look at the latest
Steam MAC
survey,
address, and I mean, come on. Chinese
Simplified has taken over as the most common language used by Steam users. 37%. It's only 30% English and then everything else. So it's just kind of interesting.
That seems way too low. And two, how did it take so long?
I don't know, but it's taken over.
I mean, there is that factor, and I have seen reports. I mean, that was a legitimate issue with the way that they were counting these internet cafes, which they're foreign to me at least. I don't know of any around here that are like PC gaming cafes, but in parts of the world like China and in Europe and some places, they are huge, and those are probably going to be Intel machines, and they're going to have a lot of traffic, and so if they keep racking those up, that can skew the statistics. Steam did say they fixed it. This, I think, was 2 years ago, but I've seen reports that it's potentially back. There are questions about the surge in Chinese users. And so, yeah, I mean, you have to take it as just a data point. You can't take Steam surveys as the be all end all of the market.
On the plus side, a lot of them are getting beyond the Great Firewall of China. So, hey, awesome.
Well, is Steam blocked?
Because otherwise we wouldn't. Oh, well, everything is blocked if they want it.
Well, everything's monitored. I was just wondering. I wasn't sure if Steam was officially blocked.
They got a VPN service, and they're just, spoofing their VPN.
They could use something like ExpressVPN.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so
did you know that Microsoft is going to become carbon negative?
Yes.
Manipulating those energy credits, huh?
Yeah,
they're going to give back
getting rid of Windows 7.
Yeah,
by getting rid of Windows 7 and by getting rid of Basic Edge, that they're going to become carbon negative.
Well, those were so inefficient for carbon neutrality. Really,
it was. I mean, look at that ugly icon and look at the beautiful new icon.
I just went through this before the podcast. It was
those sharp edges. Like they're not
traumatizing.
They're not aerodynamic at all.
Well, of course, as we're talking about is the official launch of the Chromium-based Edge browser, Edge 2, the new Edge, Credge, however you want to call it. We've heard about this for months. They had a public beta come out at some point, I think middle of last year, and I've been testing it on a variety of platforms because that's the one distinction. Now that it's based on Chromium, it's kind of multi-platform. The original Edge that launched with Windows 10 is exclusive to Windows 10. And now this will work on Windows 10, Windows 7, Mac, And it's an interesting move by Microsoft.
Would it work on
Obviously,
Chromium?
I don't know. I mean, there's no official package for it, but you could get like there might be a way to hack it into your Chromebook, because Chrome runs on your Chrome OS, so maybe.
So why can't Chrome run on it?
But yeah, it's basically Chrome, because it's on the Chromium project. So you take that base, you take away all the extra stuff Google puts in after it leaves the Chromium project, and replace it with Microsoft stuff. But because it is Chrome based, the rendering engine is pretty consistent. It supports the Chrome extension library. I guess there's still going to be some official Microsoft Edge extensions in the Windows Store, but you can go to the Chrome extension store. There's just a little checkbox at the top of the screen. You have to say, hey, do you want to allow third-party extensions? You say yes, and then you can install and sync all your Chrome extensions. And it's a fine browser as far as I've been able to test, because it's just Chrome. And I guess my only thought would be, if you wanted to use Chrome but didn't want Google, you'd use Brave or something. So I don't know how this is going to play into it. It's available for download now. It's going to be pushed out by default in some future version of Windows. That's not been determined yet when that'll happen, but you can go get it now. And the original Edge will stay in Windows for now, and it will be hidden when you get the new Chrome, because I guess the old Chrome, original Chrome rendering engine has some stuff that other apps depend on for rendering, like what apps that have browsers in them and stuff rely on that. So it's going to be in the Windows code, just like IE was for a long time in Windows 10, and still is. So yeah, I mean, have you guys?
If you're on a domain, you aren't going to see it. They figured out to block that because, well, we idiots are still dependent on IE 11 for a lot of stuff. But other than that, I mean, I just tried it tonight just to see if it did one thing that Chrome did, and well, it does.
Yeah, it does. And it's a bad thing in our case, but but it's consistent.
This will kill the Microsoft Store at some point.
Yeah, we'll see. So it's free to try out. You install it alongside your other browsers. So if you haven't had a chance to play with it, go check it out and see what you think. It's, I guess, whatever. I don't know. It's much better than Edge, the original Edge, because the original Edge, even though it had great text rendering and smooth scrolling and decent battery life compared to Chrome, it was a mess of a browser. It took forever to add even basic features, including, it was like over a year before you could save as on a file in Edge.
Well, no, about a year.
Was it? Okay, it was a long time. Yeah. It was for something as basic
ridiculous.
as that. So
it was literally
like
the
the old
desktop
Adobe.
realization. It was the desktop realization of what the Windows Phone experience was for me, which was,
yes,
we still don't have that on Windows Phone. Really, I still can't do this on Windows Phone. And then I got to experience that on the desktop too. And then I also quit using a Windows Phone because
sorry, Microsoft phones are not necessarily, compatible with Microsoft products. We apologize for this.
And little things like,
lying,
regular, normal, expected functionality that just isn't there.
All right, let's jump into the next news story, because I don't think we're even halfway done here. I told you there's a lot of stuff to show.
We are.
Are we? Okay, we're getting close. So the next story, of course, is an update to the EVGA NU Audio card.
Yes.
Now we talked about this last year, and Sebastian reviewed it. I think it was right after CES last year.
And they actually handed them out at CES. That's
right. We had a little gift to take home in our luggage. And that was a great high-end audio card. Sebastian loved it. I think, was it Editor's Choice, Gold Award? I think
I gave it gold just because of the price. Yeah, if it had been a little bit cheaper, it might have been a little bit, closer to Editor's Choice. But yeah, it's very, very fine audio card, 2-channel specific. That's the thing. Yeah, that's kind of what the new Audio Pro is about, because if you get the Pro 7.1, there's this sort of sister card, and it actually connects the other one via a Thunderbolt cable. This is, if you ever wanted SLI sound cards, this is probably the closest you're ever going to get, because
I only like connecting my sound cards via MPC.
Yeah. Well, hey, and I have no problem with that.
Which I don't think is a thing anymore.
Well, it was IBM's proprietary
It was.
bus, right? But no, it's mini display port, but that's what connects the new Audio Pro to its separate 7.1 Pro surround card. So that is the new feature of this. But then component selection, they say, is improved. I'm looking over the list here, and it's new capacitors, which are supposed to offer improved sound quality, and a new amp for the headphones. So, and of course, new and improved RGB lighting, which is on the new Audio Pro card only.
Ooh.
You have lighting strips there.
Well, that's why you release a new product now.
Yeah. And I have one. I have one of these new cards. It is still sealed in the box because I've been busy, but I will be unwrapping that and getting to that along with some other reviews here this month. But I'm excited to hear what any audible changes there might be. It was such a solid card before, though. If you don't have to list, you don't have to, trust me on this one. I think the consensus was as an extremely good headphone amp, very, very good 2-channel audio, rivaling separates, like little desktop separates. If you buy like a $100 DAC and a $100 headphone amp and put them on your desk, it's about that level of sound quality for about the same price. So it's like $200 for one of these sound cards, but you get about a $200 experience compared to separates. So it's cool to be able to integrate that into a system. And there is actually some validity to an actual sound card in 2020. You have to trust me on this because the amp is very, very clean and very, very low noise compared to onboard audio. But it is a tough sell. It's tough to say $200 for a sound card.
Well, that was last year. This is
Right.
300.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, that's if you want both. That's if you want the 7.1.
And hey, it's out of
Yeah.
stock, so they're going like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's get on a waiting list if you have to. I can't say that. I haven't tested it yet, but I will. I'll let you know what I think.
Good.
And it's one of those things where you have to temper everything with, I know it's a sound card. I know it's 2020. And I know that every motherboard, even the cheapest ones, have 7.1 sound. But motherboard multi-channel audio, probably not that great. I'll be curious to know what they're using for surround on this. Like if it has like the same chip in it as a home theater receiver and it's got amazing channel separation, all that kind of stuff. But
It could be. Well, I mean, at least it can probably provide channel separation. It does have one gigantic Achilles heel, though.
Which is?
It's not PCIe 4.0.
It's true.
I mean, if you're going to release a sound card in this day and age, AMD users are just going to be disappointed.
I'd have to look through the specs to know this, but
It's 2.0.
I bet it could support even higher bitrate audio if they're using USB or not USB. Here's the thing, though. I'll have to see if this is still the case. The original one was actually a USB device that was bridged to PCI Express. So we'd asked them at CES.
So on this one.
Is it possible you could release a mobile version of this? Because it'd be great if it was USB as an option. Like, it's a possibility. And then, of course, it comes out and it's still a PCIe. But that's when you get, let's see. I don't see anything about that.
Well, it's cleaner. Keep everything inside the case. No additional power cords. Everything's cleaner, right? Simpler. Small form factor.
If you've got the
need not
ears for
apply.
it.
Yes.
Hey, and you can do this ultra small form factor as long as you don't need a discrete video card. If you're just making yourself a little audio playback and recording box. I thought about doing this. I actually wanted to do a build last year, kind of fell apart, but I was going to do a thin mini-ITX with integrated graphics and then a new audio card and make a home media server, kind of a music server, all in one thing with two 10 terabyte drives in it. And, thin mini-ITX is hard to find these days. It's even harder to find with a PCI Express slot. You have to go back in time to previous generation Intel chipsets to even get like a by 4 PCIe slot. And then you'd have to use like a 90-degree angle adapter, and it's complicated.
All right. Well, hey, let's take another quick break to thank our second sponsor this week. We'll be right back. Today's show is brought to you by Clear. Now, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know that we've talked about Clear before, and you should also know that I am a huge fan of this service. And that's because I've started having to travel a lot more since I started working here at PC Per. And I'm in unfamiliar cities, unfamiliar airports, meetings are running late, things like that don't let you have a predictable schedule. They don't let me get to the airport early enough to avoid that so-called, I might miss my flight anxiety. And that's the last thing on a tight schedule that you want to worry about. And that's really where Clear comes in, because Clear helps you avoid that. It helps you eliminate that. Never run to your gate again, because Clear helps you get through security with the tap of a finger, so you can get to your gate faster and reduce that pre-flight stress. Clear replaces the need for a physical ID card. It uses your eyes and your fingertips to get you through security. It makes you your ID, and you're the best ID out there. With Clear, hour-long security lines are a thing of the past. You get to the airport, you go to the Clear line, you scan your fingers, and then you go right into the security checkpoint, whether it's at an airport with TSA or even at certain stadiums. Clear's available at over 65 locations, I think, more than 65 now, airports and stadiums across the country, with more being added every day. And signing up for Clear is so easy. Just go to the website clearme.com/PCPer and start the enrollment process online. And to complete the enrollment, just head to a Clear location. And this can even be the morning of your flight, because it only takes a couple minutes to enroll and you don't need an appointment. Just go up to one of the Clear kiosks that they have there, and a Clear ambassador will help you finish that enrollment process. It just takes a couple minutes, and then you can start using Clear immediately. And it's not just for you too. When you become a Clear member, you can add up to 3 family members at a discounted rate. And if you have children under 18 traveling with you, they can come through the Clear process and get through security with you on time. So you don't have to split up from your family if you're going on a family trip and you've got Clear and they don't. You can get them all enrolled and head on right through. So I've been a Clear member for close to a year now. I think I joined last March, so it's coming up on a year, and it's been absolutely the best travel-related decision I think I've ever made. But I don't want you to just take my word for it. You have to try it for yourself, and this is where it gets good. Right now, PC Per listeners can get 2 months of Clear for free. Their first 2 months for free. Travel as much as you want within that 2 months. Use the service. See how amazing it can be, how much better it can make your travel. Just head to clearme.com/PCPer. That's CLEARME.com/PCPer. clearme.com/PCPer, and use offer code PCPer when you sign up, and you'll get your first 2 months for free. clearme.com/PCPer. All right, back to the show. And we're back. Let's jump into the reviews. We've got a number of them here that we kind of queued up over the last couple of weeks. Starting off with a review of the ThinkPad T490s from Sebastian here. He says it's thin and light, done right. So tell us about this.
And I didn't just say that because it rhymes, although that was 90% of the motivation there. This was probably my favorite laptop of 2019. And so even though I completed all the testing on this way back in August and sent it back, I was sitting on all these results and pictures and notes about my usage experience and stuff, and I was poring over this stuff. Like, you know what? This was really great, and I didn't find anything I liked better the rest of the year. And we got a specific version of this, which had the low power full HD display. One of the things about these T490 and 490s laptops is they come in multiple display versions. So you can get high resolution displays with HDR support. You can get lower resolution displays like a full HD. And then there was the full HD low power variant, which I think Notebook Check they were guessing it was an IGZO, but IGZO has a different subpixel pattern, so I'm not so sure about that. But it has kind of that IGZO look. And if you don't know what IGZO is, it's this different technology. It's kind of like somewhere between IPS and OLED, I guess, to oversimplify and probably be technically incorrect at the same time. But it's very, very rich looking color, more so than your typical LCD experience. So the display looked great. Input was great. It's just a little bit thicker than an X series ThinkPad. So you have just a bit more key travel. The trackpad is a good size. I had no issues with that at all as far as accuracy. No kind of like drag issues or latency that I noticed at all using the trackpad. and it has the nub, the track point on there as well, with physical like left, right click buttons above the touchpad if you want that. No physical touchpad buttons, which I'm fine with because I always just tap to click, or you can obviously register clicks on the pad itself.
It's the classic ThinkPad keyboard, like brought back.
Yeah, the closest
Those
experience I've had to
fingers.
this particular keyboard was my ThinkPad Yoga S1, that first generation, like in 2013, 2014, when that came out, has the exact same feel, same key travel, same slightly concave keycaps. Even though they look like chiclet keycaps, they have a little bit of a texture to them, a little bit of a concave. So they're comfortable to type on. Your fingers kind of find the home row, and you're typing without looking. And at least I was. I love this keyboard. And it's backlit,
upsets
just
me
that
every time they
subtle
change it.
backlighting. Yeah, well, and you know what? And speaking of changes, this doesn't have any of those annoying changes that some of the X series had. Like, this is a full width keyboard, physical escape button, no weirdness going on there. And the other big thing about this, even though it's a thin and light, and the S, this is the T490S, which is a slimmer version of the T490, still has some legitimate I/O on it. Somehow, they made a thin and light notebook that has full-size USB ports, full-size HDMI port on the side of it. It even has, and of course it has USB 3.2 Gen 2, I think it is on it, and like Thunderbolt capability, charging, but it actually has Ethernet. There's a real Technic. It just takes an adapter. So that is the one dongle you'd have to use if you wanted a physical connection, because it didn't have the height apparently to integrate a RJ45 connector. So there is an adapter you have to use the NIC with it. But otherwise, it has pretty much full scale laptop I/O in a thin and light, which was impressive. I would love to see like a full size SD card slot and maybe make it a little bit thicker and put an Ethernet right on the side of it, but you can't have everything, I guess. As far as performance goes, hey, it's another one of those 8th generation Core i5 laptops. So there's not a whole lot to say about it. Yeah, it's Whiskey Lake. It runs like Whiskey Lake. It has decent performance. It has poor graphics performance, so don't get it for gaming. It's fine. It's your productivity machine. This is a work laptop. I carried this around with me exclusively for, I want to say I used it for like 3 months to evaluate it. Maybe it was only 2 months, but I used this every day. Threw it in my bag, took it with me, and it held up great. It's like the materials they use with these are very strong. It looks nice. It feels nice. The screen was outstanding. The battery life was great. Both battery tests I ran on this were over 14 hours. The video test and the office productivity test with PC Mark, there are new battery tests in that suite, 14 plus hours. And in daily use, it was like a day and a half, 2-day laptop per charge if I wasn't using it like super heavy. So yeah, I thought it was outstanding. The only problem,
non-gaming
is-
laptop cost $1,700.
Yeah. That's the problem. I think that low power full HD display kind of adds a little bit to the price.
Fair, but jeez.
Yeah. It's expensive. And there's no way around it. I was like, for around maybe $1,100 or so, because I'm thinking this doesn't have the ultra slim build quality of the X series, which I kind of like, because X series laptops, and it's been a year or two, but you could take the lid of the laptop and you could kind of like bend it, and you could make the display like kind of freak out, and it was a little unnerving. It's like, this is a $2,000 laptop, and I'm like putting hot spots on the LCD screen. But these are a little bit thicker. The lid is stronger, but this thing is hyper light. I should have mentioned that. It's very, very light, not to that LaVie Z lightness, that sub 2-pound laptop that feels like a plastic shell. This is just a bit heavier than that, but it's just over 2 pounds, and it feels almost too light. It's unsettling how light it is at first. You get used to it, but definitely appreciate it if you're carrying it in a bag. So I think you're partly paying for that lightness as well.
But check Lenovo's store, because as we've talked about with the various Lenovos we've reviewed, their store is weird. They're always running a sale.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like the MSRP is meaningless. There's always some, like they had a Halloween sale, and they had a Hanukkah sale and a Thanksgiving sale, so just check their store. and look for those coupon codes, and because the pricing is always in flux, unfortunately. But it starts at $11.99. You can get into the system.
That's down from when I did the review. I think it was $13.99 and up when I did the review. I swear I've seen one of the variants of this as low as $7.99, but I think that was the non-S model. And they have an AMD variant of the T490 series as well, which is a T495.
Oh,
so they have all sorts.
That's what we tested
options
for the Picasso testing. The Ryzen 3000 mobile. And then that's thicker. That is thicker. It's not the same. It's not as thin as this one, but it's a similar. It's got the same keyboard. It's got this, good port selection. So good options there.
Well, thicker isn't necessarily better. Some of us like thicker because you can patch certain things.
Yeah, I like more girth than a laptop. I can't can't overstate that.
All right. Next up, we've got a motherboard review. Maury's back. He was on a little bit of a hiatus, but he's back with an X570E gaming motherboard from Asus. It's the ROG Strix X570E.
It's like high-end Strix.
Yes, this is X570 boards, as we've talked about, they range in price. They can be very expensive, and this one was $300.
$300.
Okay, so that's in the middle. That's not too bad considering some of the.
It's high end for Strix because Strix became the Asus kind of like budget gaming brand.
Yeah.
Although of course they have Tough as well, but Strix is like next step up, but not quite to the actual like ROG flagship boards like the Crosshair 8. But still, I mean, if you're looking over this board and its feature selection and stuff, it's not far behind, and it's only $299. So really what this offers is they're doing a what they call a comprehensive cooling solution. And as you can see, it's big. It's like 8mm heat pipe and your typical complement of like M.2 heat sinks. Has a water pump header. I haven't looked over all of the components here. I know that networking was one of their key features because they have 2.5 gigabit LAN along with your gigabit Ethernet, which is Intel Ethernet. And then 802.11ax with MU-MIMO. And it's like high-end audio, other features. You can check out the review for the complete, very comprehensive list of all the features and specifications here. But, it's checking a lot of the boxes here. You're looking at a beefy cooling solution for the VRMs. And this is an X570 board. So it has active cooling, the PCH. And I mean, if you just look at some of the more recent photos, it's got really beefy VRM cooling. It's passive cooling for the power delivery, but it's big. So if you have any kind of airflow at all, it's going to keep that nice and cool. And he was impressed with this board overall too, I will say. Like he thought this was a super premium board. Feature selection is great. Build quality was very good. Performance was very good. And I'm struggling to remember if he had any complaints about this at all. I think even CMOS battery.
He loved the CMOS placement.
Yeah,
but
that was good.
The problem was that because of the way that they place the CMOS battery, if you populate all of your X16, it blocks the X1, which we all use constantly.
Well, I mean, I was thinking, wait, are those sound cards by one or are they by two?
No, they're usually by two.
Okay, so yeah, what are you using an X1 for?
I honestly don't know.
I should say. I mean, if you have to, if anything, it could always be cheaper. And he mentions price as a weakness. That's always relative. $299, but I mean, if you're comparing it to the ROG Crosshair board, I would love to have those go like head to head. I can recreate the test that Maury ran on the Crosshair that I have here that AMD sent.
I think it's more just the change in price in AMD motherboards that we've seen this generation is noticeable.
Yeah. I'm just excited. Anytime I see 2.5 gig E, I get simultaneously excited and then upset because then I think, why isn't every router sold 2.5 now? Because the same cabling can support the 2.5 gig E and yet we're stuck on gigabit. But, hey, if you buy this board, you're future-proofed.
There's this new marketing thing called 10G and yeah, so that's going to be taken over for a while. I believe I ranted on that earlier this week.
We've had the promise of 10 gig E for years now. I remember
Well,
when
no, but
in
this is
the
just
old
because
office.
DOCSIS 4 in theory can hit that, but won't. And now
Yeah.
they're branding it as that, and it's just wonderful. Someone from Edelman emailed me about it, and I just didn't believe them.
Hey, we love Edelman because
Well, we do,
they
but we know who they are.
yeah. But anyway, yeah, it got the gold award from Maury, which is, he's pretty hard on stuff, so that's very good. And he had virtually nothing bad to say about it except for like that little thing about the PCIe. And he wasn't sold on the 299 price tag, but hey, these things are relative.
Yeah. And of course, as you know, Maury's reviews are always incredibly detailed. So head over to see the full review. He goes through every screen in the BIOS and obviously CMOS placement, as we indicated, and does
it would take a longer podcast than even this one to fully cover a Maury review. And that is to Maury's credit. Yes. And thank God he puts these into the system himself. I would still be inputting this if I was doing it. Every single image and all the galleries, and it's all there. He did an outstanding job. Please read the review and reward him for all of his hard work.
Yep, and that's over at PCPro.com. It's the Asus ROG Strix X570E gaming motherboard. All right, another review here we've got in the last couple of weeks was a new Corsair keyboard. It's the K95 RGB Platinum XT. And Sebastian took a look at this for us and really seemed to like it.
Yes, this is ultra high build quality. I've actually never somehow done a high-end Corsair keyboard review. Those always went to the office. Like it would be Ryan playing with the latest Corsair keyboard. This is a K95 board, and it's like the new K95 variant. And it's got, this is the RGB Platinum XT. Of course, I saw XT, and my mind immediately goes to IBM XT. I'm like, XT, this is gonna have like a 5-pin DIN connector on it. No, it's not like that kind of XT. But what you do get is an all aluminum build, at least for the top and the frame. The back is still plastic, but just every little detail about it, like listen to this click. Like everything is super strong, from the build quality through, I don't know, like the volume roller feels great. It's a metal volume roller. But our particular review unit came with Cherry MX RGB Blue. That's one of the new features with this keyboard. The previous version of this, the non-XT version of this keyboard, was offered, I think, only with, was it brown and possibly red? They've added a blue option. Oh, it was brown and the silver speed. So you can get silver speed or blue. They sent blue. And another huge upgrade with this one is the keycaps. And it's hard to see on video or even in pictures, but it's an immediate and noticeable difference when you're actually using the keyboard, because not only do they have a little bit of a different texture, these are double shot keycaps. They're thicker, they're heavier, they're more substantial, they feel higher quality, and they last a heck of a lot longer too. So unlike ABS keycaps that kind of fade and they immediately start to shine and the shine never really goes away, PBT holds up. The biggest upgrade I ever made to a keyboard was when I switched out standard ABS keycaps with double shot PBTs, and I couldn't believe the difference. I never put any stock into people who talked about it. I thought it was just a style choice. And no, not at all. Get yourself some PBT keycaps and you will notice the difference immediately, and just the overall feel of the keyboard changes. They did some other stuff too, like the stems. The design is meant to be a little bit more stable and adds to the longevity of the keyboard. Very recently, Cherry had announced that they were the newest iteration of their MX key switches were up to 100 million keystrokes guaranteed, and that's what's integrated into this. So you get your choice. You can go with the silver speed switches on this, which have like a 1.2 millimeter actuation point. Get yourself the MX Blues, which are more of that traditional, deeper. I think it's a 2 millimeter actuation on that. Very clicky. And but the overall package of this, without increasing the price from last year. And Chris Koch did the previous iteration of this for us, the review, and he loved it. I mean, and just looking it over, the only things that changed from last year's design to this new XT are just additional features. And we're talking things like the onboard profile storage. The previous version had that, but now this one has a larger onboard storage. Now it can store 5 profiles instead of 3. There's USB pass-through on this, which is great. So instead of, I've seen some keyboards where they will offer a USB port, but it's just a charging port. This has a full pass-through, which basically, if I were to make a list of everything I wanted in a keyboard, it would be things like USB pass-through and PBT double shot keycaps. And this basically has everything that I want in a keyboard. So the customizable per key lighting, of course, it's got all that stuff which you can do in software. There's a certain amount of control you have on the keyboard itself, but the IQ software is where you go to change all the settings, the color, program macros. Another thing this added was the row of 6 keys along the left side of the keyboard, which was on the previous version. On this one, it's now fully compatible with the Elgato Stream Deck software. So now you can use these G keys in place of a Stream Deck. So you can, whatever you want to program them for, it will respond to those commands.
Did you have a chance to test that?
I have not yet because I don't have the Stream Deck software or anything here. But that's interesting because that Stream Deck by itself is like $140 box.
Yeah.
And it has like the customizable buttons. But to have that all together on one keyboard is cool. And they didn't add anything to the price. So my point is, like, they took what was an outstanding keyboard, their flagship keyboard, which, Chris reviewed and loved, Give It the Editor's Choice a year and a half ago. And they just added more functionality to it and significantly better keycaps with the new longer life key switches. And it's just, this is a class leading keyboard, ultra high end. And I think for what you're getting, the price is not outrageous, but it's still a $200 keyboard. So bear that in mind. This is a high end keyboard, but I think it actually lives up to the price. Honestly, get your hands on one of these things. It immediately feels different.
And now is the $200, is that list price? Are we seeing lower street prices, or is that what you can expect to pay?
When I was publishing the review, that's what it was selling for. So
okay.
We'll see. We'll see if the street prices drop at all. But $199, and then I think I've seen this before with the new products from them. Is the old product will still be out there in the channels. The old product will get discounted first, so you'll see Platinums out there, and then the Platinum XT will be that brand new full MSRP option.
All right, well, check it out if you're in the market for a premium keyboard that wins our Editor's Choice Award. That's the Corsair K95 RGB Platinum XT, the latest version of that flagship series from Corsair. All right, sticking with Sebastian because he did all the work the last few weeks. We've got another review.
People are done. People are done with listening to me drone on and on about this stuff, Jim.
Well, that's the benefit of, we put the timestamps in so people can just skip to the end.
All right.
And they need to see you describe these gorgeous pictures.
Yeah.
If you can see what's next to me here, this is what we're talking about. It's like this obelisk. It's just this black glass thing. But this is the LD03, Silverstone's newest Lucid Series case. And I reviewed the LD01. I saw it at CES a couple of years ago now. And it was interesting. I mean, it was kind of this high class, like a sort of lifestyle take on a computer case where it was glass panels on all the sides, but it was really big for mini-ITX. It was kind of it was actually a micro-ITX compatible case. This is very different. It's in the same family, but it's really a totally different imagining of this idea. The only thing it has in common with the first Lucid Series case is the fact that it has 3 glass side panels. But as you can see in the pictures, if you're watching the video, or if you read along with the review, it has these asymmetrical panels, and then there's vents all over the place. There's a huge vent on the top, huge vent on the bottom. There's a vent on the back for the PSU, and then the darts, the sort of plastic dart design on all the side panels has vents on the top and bottom. And it's so much more ventilated than you might think for a case that has 3 glass side panels, because they're not completely encompassing the sides. And the thermal design of this case is different too, because it's vertical. So it draws in hot air, or it draws in cool air from the bottom, and then it rises up through and is drawn out the top. Comes with 2 fans out of the box. It has a bottom fan and a top fan. So you get really great airflow. I ended up moving out the bottom fan and putting a radiator down there just because I wanted all the cool air to hit the radiator first. And I put in the EVGA, it was the GTX or the RTX, sorry, 2080 Super hybrid card that's like semi-liquid cooled. So that
Which still
went in there, no
manages to fit
problem.
in.
Oh yeah, and here's the thing. I should have done this, but I was just like, real quick, let me drop in my mini-ITX test system, which already has like a 92 millimeter air cooler on it. And I just put this all together real quick. And then as I'm doing the testing, and I realized, honestly, and the fit of the radiator there was room to spare. I could have easily put a 120 radiator in the top and bottom and had the CPU liquid cooled and the GPU liquid cooled. This case screams for custom cooling, like liquid cooling. So I should at some point put a Corsair, like the Hydro series, Hydro X series liquid cooling in here, but just kind of a combination of all the things we've seen from Silverstone over the years. Like it has a lot of Raven DNA in it, so it has the rotated motherboard design, and so all the I/O comes out the top of the case and is directed back out the top. This top panel, it clicks into place and it slides out, and you have access to all of your motherboard I/O from the top, and then all your cabling comes out the back and is directed out the back of the plastic panel. And it's just the way this went together was so easy, even considering how small it is. This is not a tiny case when you look at the actual volume of the case. The internal volume of the case is pretty high. It's like 25 liters, but it has a small footprint because it's just kind of about a 12-inch square on your desk. So the functionality is excellent. The only complaint I had of any kind was just that out of the box, the default fans are not quiet. They're just fixed speed fans. And if you put some quieter or PWM fans and set it to a lower fan, like a speed, it would be very, very quiet. But this particular system ran at like 37, 38 decibels all the time. So get yourself a quiet fan or two, and you have a lot more flexibility with cooling than you might think. There is actually more room in this case for big CPU coolers than most full-size cases. It's something like 190 millimeter height limit. So, I mean, you can put anything in here. And it just seems like I didn't even scratch the surface of what you could do with this case. And I put a RTX 2080 Super in here. And, I only put in a Core i5 processor because that's what I had set up with my mini-ITX board from that LDO1 review, because I wanted to compare CPU temps with the same cooler and the same CPU from case to case. And it was a huge improvement in thermals. So they have a great thermal design here. Think of how effective the Apple trash can was, as ridiculous as it was. And yes, I know that everything kind of ran hot in there, but it worked. And this is taking that same thermal idea of let's use natural convection to our advantage here. All the hot air is going to naturally rise, draw cool air in from the bottom, have good airflow, plenty of ventilation, and push it all out the top. And it really works. So I highly recommend this case if you have $119 to spend and are interested in a mini-ITX build that actually gives you flexibility to use whatever big air cooler you want, or go liquid, use full-size GPUs. Silverstone, when I talked to them about this case, and we were going over build notes, because the one drawback would be versus a full-size case, you have to use an SFX power supply. This does accept SFX-L. That's what I used with it. But XFXL is not much of a compromise anymore because those use big fans, they're quiet, and you can get them very, very dense these days. Like, 700, 800 watts is no problem. So without any reservations, I highly recommend this case. It's even for the money. 119 may sound like a lot, but this is a high-end case. It's kind of like that keyboard. You're not buying this if you're on a budget. You're buying a $40 or $50 case if you're on a budget. But it looks great and it's functional. So again, grab it and then grab a quiet fan for the top at least, and I think you'll be happy.
All right. Well, that is the Silverstone LDO3 mini-ITX case, $120. Check out the full review and all the photos over at PC Per. All right, our final review. We've got, again, this was published a while ago, end of December, but because of our publication or our podcast schedule, we didn't get to cover this one. But our newest writer, Kent, is back with a review of the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro headphones. And again, I'm going to let Sebastian lead the coverage of this one because he is the audiophile in this group. So what did Kent think of these headphones?
Well, if you read Kent's review, you would want to immediately go out and buy these at any cost. He goes into...
At any cost?
At virtually any cost. I was reading this and getting more and more pumped about this product. Like, this is great. What is this again? DT 1990. And I went to Amazon. I'm like, oh, it's $500. But you know what? I had to admit to myself, I have spent $500 on headphones before, and they were fine. They were good, but I couldn't detect a real difference between them and say $300 headphones that I'd heard. So the build quality of these, the extremely high, just the measured numbers, you'd have to, he doesn't have the $20,000 test equipment that Inner Fidelity might have, but he did some listening tests. He describes his experiences, and that's kind of a personal thing. It's subjective, of course, but the kinds of things he was talking about as far as clarity were exactly what I look for in headphones. And then I liked the fact that there were two different types of pads that come with these. And if you've gotten into high-end headphones or any headphones really, and you go onto community forums and sites like HeadFi, you'll know there's a big difference sometimes between the types of ear pads that you use. And I've used Grados for a long time, and you can buy these different Grado pads that provide different sound. And I'd figured this out as when I was a kid. You hold the headphones a certain way on your head, and you have tremendous treble response. And then you cup the headphones on your head, and you can change the bass response and that sort of thing. And so changing how the ear cups are held in relation to your head with different thicknesses or different materials can make a big impact on the sound. So it comes with these sort of all around pads, and then it comes with more of critical listening pads, the analytical sound, and it changes the sound of the headphones, literally. So you kind of get 2-in-1 here without having to buy any aftermarket stuff. But he goes into all of this in the review. It's definitely worth checking out. Plus, I have to add, if you're interested in reading the review on the site, you will be very impressed with his photography. Kent has upped his photo game to Chris Koch levels, I have to say. We've all kind of been chasing Chris. Jim did his best Chris Koch impression with his last review. And, I've been kind of left behind here. I take macro shots of processors, and it's kind of an afterthought at this point. This is artistic. Read the review just for the artistry of the photography, if nothing else. But yeah, if you were ever considering spending this much on headphones, he completely sold me on them. And I need to parlay a few Amazon gift cards together and make this happen for myself, because they sound awesome, according to him.
Certainly nowhere near the top of the pricing insanity of where headphones can be priced, but yeah, at $500, it's not an impulse buy. But if you're in the market for a good quality headphones, that Kent certainly can give his enthusiastic support to. That's again the Beyerdynamic DT 1990 Pro. And you can find the full
can't argue
there.
with the German engineering there. Plus, they come in a sweet case. I didn't get a case with my Grado RS2s, and those were $500.
Look at how substantial that is. That's
real. It's like a real professional product there.
Yeah, and those balanced cables, it looks like.
Yeah, I didn't get that with my Grados either.
All right. Well, let's see. Did any of you guys? Okay, Josh finally updated his pick of the week. I don't see anything from you guys though.
Oh no, that was me.
Oh, that was okay. So that's Jeremy. He put it in the Josh section. All right.
Oh well, I forgot about
the wrong spot.
All right. Well, I'll start while Sebastian finds something. So my pick of the week is over at Humble Bundle. They've got because unless you've been under a rock, you realize there's a massive terrible fire raging throughout all of Australia. Just tons of damage and forcing people out of their homes, devastating wildlife. And so, like a lot of companies, it's good to see that Humble is stepping up. They've got a bundle that is giving their donation to various charities that are working in Australia right now for fire relief. So head on over and check that out. For $25, you get a ton of games, Hollow Knight, Euro Truck Simulator 2. Let's see, some other games I've played here. There's a bunch I haven't played, so it's a good thing to pick up. But how do you pronounce that? Machinarium. I played that a couple years ago. That was a fun cute little game. But there's a bunch of games for a decent price, and your funds go to support the great charities doing work there in Australia. We are a Humble partner, so we do like affiliate links when we link to them. But this is because this is such an important cause. There's no affiliate commission. Every penny you spend here is going to these charities. So check that out. You're not putting any money in our pockets. You're putting money where it should go. So that's the Humble Australia Fire Relief Bundle, and we'll have a link to that in the show notes. So you can just head over to thehumblebundle.com, and it's one of their featured bundles right now. All right, so Jeremy, you've got a pick for us. What do you got here?
Well, there were two batteries that were really hard to choose between, because the J-Flex is neat because it's a flexible ion battery with some reasonable, output to it. But what really got me was the fact that a group of 3 different research houses have literally figured out a way to turn plants into batteries. So guess what? Yeah, even the plants are washing you now. This is essentially, it's a way of implementing the LoRa the LoRa networking, which is extremely low voltage ways of, as some people have described it, letting Internet of Thing devices tweet at each other. So they can just give a very quick update to another device. I'm still alive. This sensor has changed in this much, but not a constant feed of information. And so these guys at Harwell, at Lacuna Space, and Plant E have actually figured out a way that if you've got any sort of wet vegetation, they can use it to produce enough electricity to run a very, very low power Internet of Things sensor. So we're talking about like 0.2 milliwatts. But the fact that you can just drop a sensor in to, a rice paddy somewhere in the Canadian tundra, somewhere you don't want to go, but you want to measure it all the time, and install this, and it will just run. And the reason that Harwell Lacuna Space was involved in this is because what they were doing was using LoRa to transmit up to a satellite and then back to the researchers to say that yes, the plant is still alive. It's sort of interesting to think that we can now turn, damp soil with living plants into what is essentially a tiny little fuel cell. And I mean, the ants are going to be pissed off at us. We know that, but it's better the grass than it is us, because someday, they'll be using us for batteries, really, really crappy batteries, but nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the Matrix at a different level.
Yeah.
And let me pull up Sebastian's pick here. All right, what have you got for us?
Okay, well, I would like to see Microsoft do something about this operating system. Yeah, Windows 7 may be EOL, but what are you going to do about DOS 6.22? Especially when I don't even get online with this. But no, it's not my pick of the week. Pick of the week is actually somehow I had never heard this album before. My wife got this for me. My birthday was yesterday. She got me a copy of Computer World, which she probably thought she was being hilarious because it says Computer World on it. It has a picture of an old, some sort of old 1970s computer on the cover of it. But it's Croft. How do you pronounce this? Kraftwerk. If you're not familiar, It's a 1981 electronic album. I've been getting more into electronic music lately. I've been listening to the Blade Runner soundtrack a lot, which is from '82. And having never heard this before, listened through the whole record, and it's outstanding. There's some.
You've literally never heard Kraftwerk before.
I had never heard it before.
I am shocked.
Yeah, and I've played it probably 4 or 5 times since last night. It's like, this is great. I keep on listening to it over and over again. There is the one Pocket Calculator track, which is a little jarring.
Well, yes.
It features actual Pocket Calculator sounds as well. As they say, I don't remember what they chant. Something about my Pocket Calculator.
So you're going to have to learn about Einstein a new button and stuff too.
Yeah, but it's good. It's very good. I recommend listening to it.
Did you get the vinyl?
Yeah, she got it for me on vinyl.
All right. So, but you can get it. It's streaming through Amazon's streaming service. So I imagine it's streaming through the others as well, and audio CD.
And if you're a dinosaur and buy CDs, it's only like $8. The record's like $25-$26, but it's really, really good sounding record too. This was not some garbage pressing. I had no idea what the provenance of this record was, but I dropped it into the turntable and it sounds absolutely fantastic. So I can imagine pretty much any of the versions out there probably sound very good.
All right. Well, that's Computer World 1981 by Kraftwerk. Okay. Well, I guess that's the show for this week. Thanks everyone for joining us. We normally record on Wednesday. Well, I say normally. Can we say normally if we've missed 3 weeks in a row?
No, you cannot say normally. I'd say more often than not Thursday, possibly.
Yeah.
Like 50-50, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah. We would like to record Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern. And I would like to be conscious and available to access the Sendy mailing list to notify you when we go live at pcper.com/subscribe. So hopefully that'll be going forward. I missed a few weeks there, but going forward, you can check that out, and you can join us at pcper.com/live or on our YouTube page to watch the live stream. And then, of course, within a day or so after every episode, we have the on-demand version up. It's all post-processed. We've got the sidebar with all the topics, timestamps in the description, links to all the picks of the week and all that good stuff. That's all available.
He auto-tunes us to sweetens up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to do the bare minimum to get us to an acceptable level to unleash upon the masses.
You wouldn't believe
the
demands that I make of Jim when I'm like John Lennon. I'm like, George, I need you to lower the pitch or raise the pitch, because he famously hated the sound of his own voice. So I always have Jim tweak things about my voice before I'll allow him to release the podcast.
So I'm happy to give in to your demands because I don't want to hear from Yoko. But
it's like, my wife is not that demanding, Jim.
Well, anyway,
she's like furiously private messaging Jim right now. How dare you?
Why did she have my phone number?
No, just Discord PMs. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
Don't worry about it. Yeah,
I don't want to.
The public chat. Anybody in the public chat can start can communicate with us. That's fine.
That's true.
I take DMs. I have open DMs on Discord. Contact me.
Yep. And that's right. Speaking of our Discord, we do have a Discord community. There is a link in our show notes at pcper.com/podcast. So all the of the last 5 months or whenever we started doing this, there's in those show notes, there's always a link to the Discord. People have asked me to spread that further, to tweet it or put it on our YouTube description. And I looked into that, and I might be misunderstanding because I don't know Discord very well, but my impression is from reading their terms of service, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to publicly, openly share your server links. And so if I'm wrong about that, correct me. They want you to share it in your community. They don't want you blast it on Twitter or something. From my reading of the terms. So we've limited it there. You can always find it at the show notes though. So come on over and join us there. We've got a couple channels going. Occasionally we have giveaways when we get extra keys for Steam games and stuff. I randomly give stuff away at 2 a.m. So make sure you get in there, because the same couple guys always grab them because they're just up with me at those hours. So get in there, and
you could be one of those people.
You could be
one of those people. And you know what? And I'm sorry, Waffles, in our chat right now, that we're not giving love to IRC, but I love old stuff, obviously. but I just find IRC to be inconvenient in my current lifestyle. I'm sorry. Because I can install Discord, it's cross-platform. I know there's IRC clients for everything. There's just something about it's a simple self-contained app. I can access it on the web. I can access it on my phone. And you can upload stuff easily to it. And it's very polished. And it's fine. Oh, and Helms. Helms is here. That's all you need, according to Helms.
That is true. That is true. All right. Well, again, that's the show for this week. Thanks for joining us. Everyone have a great week. We'll hopefully be back on a more regular schedule going forward. And until we see you then, take care, everyone.